Alright guys, easy week today. Today we're going to learn about the quadratic formula. Now we've dealt with quadratics for quite some time now. We've learned how to graph them, how to find the solutions of the graph. We found out how to factor and the different ways and techniques to factor quadratic equations. We learned how to use the intercepts. And now we're going to do the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula can be used for any type of quadratic equation. So when you have a quadratic equation that is non-factorable, you tried the AC method, doesn't work. You try to find the factors of C that sum to B, doesn't work. The quadratic formula is essentially your fail-safe. When in doubt, use the quadratic formula to solve. Now if you recall, the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c, and when we solve we equal it to 0. The value of x are my solutions. They're considered my roots. The zeros to the function, the x-intercepts, or the solutions. Again, 4 different words to represent the same thing. When I'm asking you to solve, I'm asking you to find the roots, zeros, x-intercepts, or solutions. Now, A, B, and C are numbers, and they're the coefficients where A can never equal to 0. The reason why is because if A was 0, it would knock this x squared out, no longer making it a quadratic equation, and it would then be linear. B and C, on the other hand, can be 0 because it would still give you that x squared. So another thing to note is this plus or minus sign. Now, hopefully you know this, but it means that you have 2 possible solutions, or 2 solutions. And here you have x is equal to negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And you have x is equal to negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So that is the distinction between the plus or minus. You have one equation that has a plus and another equation that has a minus. A lot of students do this: negative b plus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. This is a big no. Hopefully you see the distinction. Everything is being divided by that 2a. So please remember that when you do your calculations. 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 is equal to 0. The first step is to identify what the values of a, b, and c are. A is equal to 2, b is equal to negative 5, and c is equal to 3. Now my quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Now, time to substitute some values. Here I have negative b, but in this case, b is negative 5, so I'm going to substitute that negative 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, again, that's that negative 5, minus 4 times the value of a, which is 2, times c, which is 3. This is all divided by 2 times the value of a, which is 2. Now I'm just going to simplify. X is equal to positive 5 plus or minus negative 5 squared is 25. 4 times 2 times 3 is negative 24. All divided by 4. X is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 1 divided by 4. Now I can break it up. I have x is equal to 5 plus the square root of 1 all divided by 4, and x is equal to 5 minus the square root of 1, which happens just to be 1 divided by 4. So I have x is equal to, again, the square root of 1 is 1, so 5 plus 1 is 6/4. This can be reduced to 3/2. And here I have x is equal to 5 minus 1 is 4 divided by 4. X is equal to 1. This is the answer. These are the solutions. Now to draw a rough graph, that just means that if I have 1/2 here, 1, 1.5, that means that my x-intercepts are about there, and it's going to come down and go up. Hopefully you recall, these are my solutions or x-intercepts. And that is how to use the quadratic equation. So let's take a look at a few more examples. Here I have x squared minus 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. Again, identify a, b, and c. A is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 6, and c is equal to 5. And substituting into my quadratic formula, hopefully you have it written down somewhere. So here I have negative b, which is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared again, minus 4 times a times b, all divided by 2 times a. Now, time to simplify. X is equal to positive 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 4 times 1 times 5 is 20 divided by 2. I don't know why I did that. And then let's simplify a little bit further. I have 6 plus or minus the square root of 16 divided by 2. X is equal to 6 plus or minus 4 over 2. Now that I have simplified my equations as furthest as possible, I'm going to break up my equation. 6 plus 4 divided by 2. X is equal to 6 minus 4 divided by 2 for an answer of 6 plus 4 is 10 divided by 2 is 5. X is equal to 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And these are my answers. You can always check your answer by substituting back into the function, and you should get 0. An example, if you wanted to check, if you recall my equation, x squared minus 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. I'm going to substitute my 1 everywhere I see an x, and I should equal to 0. If I don't, then I did something wrong. So 1 squared is 1, minus 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5. 1 minus 6 is negative 5, plus 5 is equal to 0. And 0 is equal to 0 is a true statement, and so this checks out. If you try the second one, you'll notice that 5 also checks out. This is perfect. Let's take a look at one more. Here I have an equation, 4x squared minus 4x is equal to negative 1. Again, the first thing that we need to identify is A, B, and C. But wait, what is the value of C? I know that A is 4, B is negative 4, but something's a little different. Hopefully you recognized that we didn't solve it. We're not equal to 0 yet, and it's not solved for 0. And so I must equal it to 0 first, in which case I would get 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now we can definitely see that C is equal to 1. So again, let's do this one more time. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times the value of a times c, which is 1. All divided by 2 times 4. So here I have x is equal to positive 4. Again, negative times negative is 4. Plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared, 16, minus a, in which case it's supposed to be 4. And I have negative 4 times 1, negative 16, divided by 2 times 4. X is equal to 4 plus or minus. Square root of 16 minus 16 is 0, so I get a 0 there. 8. And well, time to break up my equations. X is equal to 4 plus 0 or 4 minus 0, nothing will change. And so I'm left with one answer, or one solution, of 1/2. This is called a double root, in which case if this is a half and this is 1, my equation will look something like this. Or my graph to the equation will look something like this. And this is a double root because the graph, when it comes down, it's going to bounce right off the x-intercept or the x-axis and go right back up. Hence why we only have one solution. Now, there is a possibility of having no solution, and that will happen when you have a negative under the radicand. Once this happens, that is not a solution because it is an imaginary number. Hopefully you remember from our last lesson. But that is the gist of my lesson. Hopefully that made sense and you were able to follow along. The quadratic formula is very easy to use. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will be on this week, and I can go over a few more examples if you need. Take care now.